the haulage industry, which is holding off on protest action following talks with the Transport Minister, who has promised substantial supports to help with soaring fuel costs. The threat of protest action had loomed, with diesel prices surging past €2 a litre and the haulage sector saying it's in crisis. However, hauliers have stepped back from protest action for now after what has been described as a constructive meeting with Darragh O'Brien. Ger Hyland is president of the Irish Road Haulage Association and says people understand lorry drivers are essential to the wider economy.
We're the people who bring everything from the shoes on your feet. So if the cornflakes is not on your table, do not blame the hauliers, because we just can't afford to put the fuel in our trucks at the present time. But not alone is this a haulier issue. We now have the support of other organisations and the general public.
President of the IRHA, Ger Hyland there, and joining me now in studio is Eugene Drennan, Deputy President of the Irish Road Haulage Association and an Ennis-based haulier. Eugene, thanks for popping in.
Good morning, Alan.
Let's start with why hauliers were threatening protest action over soaring fuel costs, and the bad news here is that the wholesale price of diesel rose by an average of 6.99 cent per litre from midnight last night, and another increase from midnight tonight, further average of 6.3 cent. Petrol increased by 3.02 cent per litre from last night and 1.8 cent from midnight tonight. We'll get to your meeting with Minister O'Brien and what has come of that, what positives have come of that, but talk to us a little bit about what it's like on the ground for hauliers, Eugene, with diesel prices going, I say, beyond €2 per litre. I mean, I've seen $2.15 somewhere. I've seen pictures online from service stations in Clare at $2.25.
Yes, indeed. I suppose the rising of the fuel costs so extremely is the catalyst that brought to the fore all the problems we had heretofore. Haulage business in general has a somewhere between 2 and 5 or 6% of a profit margin, and the cost of investment in the equipment has increased to such an extent over the years that we really are on a very tight figure of profit to the cost of investment, and to try and have some little bit of money left along the way, as called a profit. And you take the equipment for the continent now. If you have a top of the range modern truck going to the mainland Europe with the goods, with perhaps a fridge trailer, you're at $250,000 per unit. So operating off a very tight margin like that, we have to be sharpen our costs, and we have to try and have all the synergies we can to work leanly and get some money. And our costs had just spiralled, and the upward spiral of cost, I've spoken here before about it. We never saw the unrelenting upward spiral of cost, even before Iran, since Ukraine. And the state was shooting itself in the foot so often with some of the charges they apply. Some of the charges, there was tax on tax on tax on fuel, like there's 6 taxes. And for a country that were a little bit relaxed about the green agenda and the carbon element and our carbon footprint up to 2015. And the last government came in, and suddenly we had to be sprung from lowest in class to be best in Europe, charging more than anybody, be top of the class. And the upward spiral of the carbon tax has absolutely pared all costs, and it's just gone too high.
And I do want to come back to the carbon tax increase because it doesn't look like good news on that front. So we'll touch on that a little later on. But were some operators already at the point, Eugene, where they're on the verge of not being able to continue trading? Has it been that perilous for some in the industry?
Oh, it's very close to it. Very, very close to it. And it's more the big operators who have the high overcosts are really cash flow stuck at the moment and are screaming. But take it that the majority of fleets and the majority of operators in Ireland now are between 2 and 5 trucks. The single man has got less and less because of the way modern life has come and the services required. It's very tough on somebody with a single truck to survive and to have a continuity and a constancy of work all year round. So it's between 3 and 5 trucks, and on a tight margin like that, and all the difficulties that come with being on the road nowadays, all the laws, all the legalities, all the testing regimes, a myriad of, like every other industry, but it really has squeezed us. And then on the bigger fleets, this upward spiral, like they can't get. If you're in volume, you have a big fleet, but you're on a very, very tight margin. And with this upward spiral and then the fuel, they're really, not making money at all this year so far. And they have a constant cash flow problem. And for paying the higher costs that have come in the fuel, they won't get the money for the work they've done for 3 months, maybe, between 1 and 3 months' time. Okay, so that big loss of cash flow is really hurting, and they are finding it very, very difficult.
And I just wonder, how close was the industry to taking protest action before yesterday's developments and meeting with Darragh O'Brien, and how much does public sentiment and having the public on your side factor into that? Because obviously, if the protest involves downing tools and that leads to significant variety of supplies and necessities not coming into the country and not being on supermarket shelves, is there a concern from hauliers that we may lose public support, or do you feel things are so perilous that was a risk worth taking?
Well, that's a mixed bag of emotion and a mixed number of factors to take in, and we took them all into account. To the level, I would have gone out in November, but I wanted to go early November. Once we decided sort of second week, and then we decided it was a little bit too close to Christmas. It would be so unfair, and bad weather and bad time of year. So we postponed it really within ourselves, with our management structure at that time. And then we had a meeting in February, and we were ready to go. But we did go back to try and meet government to be sure that we gave them every opportunity and to see where we could get to. We weren't heard then, not really. They didn't take it seriously enough. I think there was a perception that we would threat and not go. And you see a lot of protests in Dublin. They're a one-day event. And
how long was this potential strike action going to last for, or was there any time frame on it?
Well, the first days maybe just 1 or 2 days, but we have the cabs, we have the cooking equipment, we have the bed in the cab. For the big event, we were coming for as long as it took.
So you could dig in your heels.
We could dig in our heels.
So what was different about this time that the government listened and that you got that meeting with Darragh O'Brien?
I'd say our body language, our indications. We lobbied around the country and said to every TD, the emails went out and said, don't take us for granted this time, we've got more serious. And then other bodies were contacting us saying, would you please take the lead? And some of the consumer and representative of the public, the ordinary public, if you want to, for want of a better word, were saying, there's nobody able to lead this. There's nobody able to go be strong enough and good enough. You're the only people to do it. And people are actually sometimes stopping me in the street here in Ennis and saying, when are you going to Dublin? Will you please go? And but at the same time, timing is everything, and you must try and time your run, like in Cheltenham, to be a winner. And but time it that you have given them every opportunity. You have done the diplomacy, you have done the negotiations, you've done the background canvassing everywhere you could, and when that was failing, it was a lacklustre approach from the day the war came. Now, when Iran started that first Monday, I sent some very strong emails out from the office in Dublin, pointing out that this is a war. And wars are different to, other like.
This is not an excursion, as Donald Trump was calling it.
No, it's not a short-term event. It's a full-on, very serious war. Ukraine was an invasion. It was a country far away from us. It didn't threaten us with energy. It did affect us afterwards, and it was a war, and we're feeling the effect of it is. But this is a Middle East Gulf war, and it's it was like 1977 when the oil stopped flowing. It was going to stop again, and it was going to have very, very serious consequences. So we started pushing the ante on that Monday morning.
Okay, so they couldn't help but fail to notice that.
Yes.
You got the meeting, the IRHA, with Darragh O'Brien. Now,
Yes.
He has promised substantial supports on foot of that meeting, which suggests it was a positive meeting. Can you give us more of a sense of what it was like, how receptive he and his staff were to, and the government in general, to the case that the IRHA put before them?
Yes, and just before that, we got the meeting because we were very strong in pointing out to them how lacklustre they were heretofore in taking cognizance it was a war. It was sort of a sit and wait, and a lot of people got caught by that in their private dealings as well, that Trump would say it but he wouldn't act, and that it wouldn't go on for long, and he was going to come out in 2 days. But you should err on the side of caution, and you should err okay if Ireland was caught out by spending some money it didn't really need to, or giving supports, but it was, as I said, we and anybody else who bought fuel or needed to buy fuel, it was better to be looking at it than looking for it. And the state should have adopted some sort of an attitude around that. Like Jennifer Karen McNeil in Health came out and said, we're judging the situation, we're waiting to see, we expect it to fall.
I just wonder, Eugene, do you feel, not just in this particular scenario, but you could apply this to other scenarios as well, is our government too reactive rather than proactive? There's a bit of that, let's wait and see how it develops, rather than hedging their bets and saying, well, we might need this. As you said, better to be looking at it than for it. Yeah,
for sure. And I think that's the politics coming into it. I think politics in general, and this government has shifted a little bit that way. They want to find the temperature of the public opinion all the time. They want to see will what they're proposing work reasonably well, that the majority will come with it rather than against it. So then they dither on it, sending out these feelers instead of being decisive on some stuff that needs a fairly immediate reaction and decisiveness.
This was a point that was put to the government and to Minister O'Brien in the meeting. Were they receptive to that, or they were receptive to the other points you had to make?
I think before the meeting they had accepted that what we were saying was right. I think we went into the meeting with that being accepted. We went in with the proactive of not are we going to get something, not will you give something, what are you putting on the table today, or we're out tomorrow.
Okay, so the Minister has promised substantial supports. We're hearing about, as you rightly pointed out earlier on, every litre of diesel or petrol, you're talking about, 60% thereabouts. I know slightly different. There's a little difference between petrol and diesel, is taxes and excise and all that. We're hearing about possible excise duty relief, an enhanced diesel rebate. Would those measures be enough?
Once there's some sort of an index linked to them, and that it will take into a swift, take cognizance of where it is, whether it's going up or down, and that there's a balance of, a fair degree of fairness to the public as well as to us, but particularly to us because we are the big volume users, we're the big tax collectors of fuel excise for the government. It is massive sums of money. So within that whole picture, we have to be taken care of. Where we're at in it is we will have another referral or meeting either over the weekend or on Monday. We will have more input over the weekend and Monday. We are promised a significant, now whether that's a reality of the public or of our industry significant or a political significant is where the toss of the coin is and the wonderment is. But I think on this occasion no senior minister of any government will come to you both stating that is the case and indicating that they're willing to take us on board or face big industrial stoppage. I think that we can accept the word.
We should find out. I think it's going to be go before Cabinet next Tuesday. Presumably will be announced in the Dáil on this package on Wednesday. So it looks like possible excise duty relief and enhanced diesel rebate. But we were talking about carbon tax increase earlier on. Minister O'Brien has ruled out suspending that. Is that a disappointment, or had you expected that to be a red line for him?
No, it's a disappointment to me because I've been advocating this since that we've just gone too far, too high with carbon tax. And in, I suppose, the politics of the time of the formation of the last government, the pledge to the Greens was that they would get this concession, but they did enshrine it in what's called primary legislation. So to change carbon tax now would take another bill through the Dáil to be voted on, which I don't think is a mountain to climb. It's just get on with it and put it through. But the political will there at the moment isn't for giving up on that. So it will be other measures, but I would advise people here, the best indicator I can give you to answer what's in the package, I would say to people this morning in Clare, if it gives any little bit of help to them or release, though it's gone up this morning, I would hold off in buying home heat and oil or any significant amounts of fuel until at least Wednesday. The promise is it'll go through the Dáil, it'll be rammed through the Dáil on Tuesday when the final picture is shown, and it will be law Tuesday night. It will apply from Tuesday night. So hopefully whatever's in the package. Now I have kind of ideas, but we're still in the negotiations.
Folks, you smile here. It's Friday, the sun is shining, and Eugene Drennan brings us news of falling fuel prices. I tell you, what a way to finish the week.
I do tongue in cheek, but it's falling against what the increase may come in the next 2 days. But the other indication that is reasonable is it fell in Italy by 20 cents yesterday. Now we're an island, we have to get it on board. It may be purchased on the seas at the moment. we had to be sure of the supply. So that might cause the higher changes for today, I would hope, and the next few days. But I would hold off on buying your home heating oil. Put on a jumper. The weather is that. The weather has got better.
Even with the increase last night and tonight, at least if that's that and a bit more is coming down, that's some bit of good news to hang our hat on. I wonder if this particular crisis, Eugene, has highlighted for the haulage sector the need for longer term restructuring of fuel taxation, that this isn't just about, the short term emergency supports will be welcome, but are you highlighting to government that there needs to be something done more long term here? Absolutely,
and it's the absolute opportune time, because Europe has been considering what's known as the recast excise taxation directive over the last 2 years, and they're really feeling the way that with all the newer ways of generating power or of the alternative electric cars and that, how they'll get their taxation in the future to fund the economies. But we here are overladen with, as I say, 6 taxes on fuel. It's too much is coming out of the general public and ourselves for fuel as an island. I keep stressing an island because we do have difficulties here more. We do have other costs because we have to try and get stuff in. But 2 things that have to be taken into account also on this equation of this time. One is our fuel change in Ukraine, and we pay more because it's refined in Europe rather than Russia now. So we've been paying more for it in Europe. But our supply chain is coming out of Scandinavia and Pembrokeshire. It's Brent crude coming through England.
Which is why people are going, have been saying, why has petrol and diesel gone up by so much, or home heating oil, because of what's happened in the Middle East? We had more than a few texts saying, or do we not get ours from the North Sea?
Yeah, well, it's a commodity. And
is it opportunism, Eugene?
No, it's benchmark price. It's set on the major world markets. The price.
But what I mean by opportunism is that what's happening in the Middle East, the fuel providers and suppliers are using that as an opportunity, a justification, when actually a lot of it's coming from the North Sea. Well,
I wouldn't say opportunism this time, because that is the system that worked, so opportunism worked. But why do we not have a locked-in price of fair, reasonable, because we're a repeat customer? Okay. Now, we also are fighting for the low day, and people wouldn't buy it if it, there's lots of problems in that, but it should be refined somewhat that it would stay cheaper if we're, if we have 3 months ahead. And the other thing that's crazy is the price of the alternative fuel, HVO, went up in this crisis. That's a manufactured, traded commodity in Europe. It's made in Rotterdam. And why that wasn't locked into a price to save us in the crisis, and we would be at the old price, and we'd all be using carbon-free fuel. It didn't happen. Sorry, Alan.
No, you're okay. I'm almost out of time, but I do want to finish by asking you. So, as you say, we expect this package of measures to come before the Dáil next Tuesday, be implemented from midnight into Wednesday. The Minister has described haulage as critical to the supply chain, so I'm sure he'll be eager to ensure you guys are satisfied and will not proceed with any protest action. But if you don't see what you want to see in this package, will protest action kick in? Will that lead to disruption to deliveries, a risk to the consumer of price increases on supermarket shelves and other items in stores around the country?
Yes, at the moment even, and if it doesn't kick in substantially to us, of course there'll be price increases. Wars always, and it won't finish with getting the package, because petrochemical products will be high, tyres will be high, silage wrap will be high. Anything like that will be expensive for quite a few months after. It just doesn't turn off in the switch. What is fair? What will be the package? What will we have to? It's a negotiation going on, and you have to try and take a balance. If there's a fair enough deal on offer for now, with progression maybe to the future around budget time, that might be a fair deal. Maybe the amount of money now and nothing else for the rest of the year.
But you haven't left the Minister in any doubt that if this package isn't satisfactory, protest action will proceed.
And I can assure people in County Clare and yourself, anybody who ever speaks to me are never left in doubt as to what it's meant.
And that's maybe part of the reason why we've received a text on 086 1800 964 from a Morning Focus listener who says Eugene Drennan should run for government. We need business thinking people like him to run this country. I don't know, I'd say your schedule is busy enough as it is, Eugene, without going for Micheál Martin's job.
Absolutely. And we have to take cognizance of the years ticking along.
Could you imagine? Eugene says he never leaves anyone in any
doubt. Out there.
Yeah, you never leave anyone in any doubt. Imagine you in the Oval Office on Tuesday just gone. Yeah. Right, we'll park that one there for the moment, but I'm sure sure we'll be talking to you again, possibly sooner rather than later. Yeah, next Wednesday. Eugene Drennan, the Deputy President of the Irish Road Haulage Association, Ennis-based haulier. Thanks very much for joining us this morning.